There's a stretch of highway out here that I've probably driven more than 100 times. It's the kind of road you take when you don't have any better options. 2 lanes, no shoulder, just miles of dark nothing, cutting through farmland and small towns nobody has ever heard of. I work a weird delivery job. It's not Amazon or UPS. We're this small contractor that takes random shipments between factories and repair centers. Sometimes I'll be hauling a single box of parts to a warehouse 2 states away because they needed it right now. And this was one of those jobs. It's early March last year, right before the weather really started to warm up. The run took me from a small industrial park on the edge of Kansas City all the way down to a fabrication shop outside Wichita, about 3 hours each way. And for whatever reason, I always made the drive late, partly because the traffic is easier, mostly because I've never been a morning person. I always feel like, I think, clearer after midnight. There's something about being alone on the road with nothing but the radio and the sound of the tires. It's peaceful in a way that's hard to explain unless you've done it. The route was simple too. You get out of the city, hit the state highway, and for about 70 miles it's just farms, fields, and long stretches of dark road. Every 10 miles or so, you'd pass a gas station or a truck stop lit up like a cheap casino, but other than that, it was empty. On a normal night, I might see 2 or 3 cars the entire drive. I never thought anything strange about that. In a way, I liked it. It made the drives feel quicker, like the world was asleep, and I was the only one still moving. The first time I saw the SUV was a Tuesday. I pulled out of the industrial park around 11:40 p.m. It was lightly raining, just enough to make the road shine under the headlights. The first 30 minutes of the drive are always the same. Scattered traffic by a town or 2, then everything drops off. About 15 minutes after the last gas station, I noticed headlights behind me. Not close, just far enough back that it looked like they were pacing me. That happens sometimes on empty roads. 2 cars end up going the same speed without meaning to. I didn't think anything of it. I turned the radio down, sipped my coffee, and focused on the road. 10 minutes later, the headlights were still there. Same distance, never getting closer, never falling back. It was weird enough that I glanced at the mirror more than once just to make sure they were actually there, and not my mind playing tricks on me. When I pulled into the drop-off lot around 1:30 a.m., I looked back one more time. The highway behind me was empty. I don't know why, but that stuck in my head. I didn't see the SUV again that night, so I wrote it off as nothing, just another late-night driver going wherever they were going. But 2 nights later, I made the same run, and the headlights showed up again. Same spot, same distance, same pacing. That's when things started to feel different. Not dangerous, just wrong. Like something I wasn't supposed to notice. 2 nights later, I was back on the same route. Same cargo, same factory pickup, same late start. I even left at almost the exact same time without really thinking about it. 11:40 p.m. again. It wasn't intentional. That's just when the job ended and when the shipment was ready. It had been raining earlier that day, so the air outside the city felt damp and cold, with that foggy shine you get on the road when it hasn't fully dried. I wasn't tired yet, but the drive felt heavier than usual. The highway was dead quiet from the moment I passed the last cluster of lights. About 20 minutes into the darkness, I saw it again. Headlights, far back, maybe a quarter mile. Same angle, same brightness, like déjà vu. I instantly remembered the sight from 2 nights earlier. At first, I tried to make excuses for it in my head. Maybe it's a truck. Maybe somebody else has the same night shift. Maybe I'm just noticing it now because I'm thinking about it. All of those were reasonable explanations, but there was a detail I couldn't shake. It wasn't speeding up or slowing down. Whoever was driving was matching me almost perfectly. Not close enough to be tailgating, but not far enough to be random traffic. Just there. The highway curved slightly through farmland, and every time I looked in the mirror, the headlights stayed in the exact same spot. Far enough to be ignored, close enough to be noticed. The longer it stayed behind me, the more obvious it felt. I didn't want to be paranoid, so I forced myself not to look back. I turned the radio up a little, cracked the window, focused ahead. Eventually, the highway straightened out for a long stretch. One of those 5-mile runs where you can see the road right until it disappears into pure black. On that stretch, something happened that made my stomach tighten. The headlights behind me got smaller, like the driver lifted off the gas. I watched them fade to a tiny dot, then vanish completely. No turn, no exit, just gone. The thing is, I didn't pass any intersections. There wasn't anywhere to go. Just one straight, empty road. For the next 20 minutes, I saw nothing in my mirrors, not a single car. When I finally pulled into the same rear loading bay in Wichita, I backed into the spot and shut the engine off. For some reason, before getting out, I checked the highway behind me one more time. I don't know what I expected. Maybe nothing. But the road was empty, just like last time. I stood there in the cold air for a second longer than I usually do, listening to the building's ventilation hum. It didn't feel like a real threat yet, just something my brain refused to let go of. The next night I didn't have a delivery, neither did the night after. By the time the weekend came, I convinced myself it was meaningless. Then Monday rolled around and I got another late run. I decided to test something. Instead of leaving at 11:40 p.m., I waited. I sat in my truck with the ignition off until 1:15 a.m., 2 hours later than usual. If the headlights appeared again after changing my timing, then it wasn't a coincidence anymore. I laughed at myself while I waited. Because who does that? Who sits in a dark parking lot to see if an anonymous SUV shows up behind them on the highway again? It felt ridiculous. But when I finally got moving, my stomach was tight the entire time. Like some part of me expected to see headlights materialize the moment the farmland started. And for a while, there was nothing. I passed the town, past the gas stations, hit the dead stretch of highway, no cars, just darkness. It actually made me feel stupid. I remember shaking my head and telling myself out loud to stop acting like a kid who watched too many horror movies growing up. Then, after about 40 minutes, just as the highway dipped into a long valley, I saw 2 tiny dots appear on the horizon behind me. Headlights, far back, slow. Slow enough that it took me a full minute to confirm they were actually moving. Same pacing distance, same slow approach, but this time I noticed something new. Every time I glanced up, the headlights were positioned perfectly in the center of the lane. Dead center. Not drifting, not adjusting. Like someone was driving with machine precision. No movement, no randomness. Just an exact, controlled follow. That's the moment when something changed in my head. It wasn't a coincidence anymore. I wasn't just sharing the road with another late-night driver. Someone was pacing me on an empty highway in the middle of nowhere, and they had adjusted to my schedule. Once I admitted to myself that it wasn't random, it stopped being creepy and started feeling personal. That night, the SUV stayed behind me for almost the entire drive. Sometimes it would drift just far enough back that the headlights looked faint, like they were about to disappear. Other times it would close the gap until I could make out the shape of the vehicle around the lights. A dark, mid-sized SUV. Nothing special, with a wide grille and a tall front end. Every time I changed lanes, it changed lanes. When I sped up, it sped up. When I eased off the gas, it did too. It never got close enough to tailgate. Whoever was driving knew exactly how to keep just enough distance to avoid drawing real attention. I pulled into the same drop-off lot as usual. The protocol is always the same. Back up to the dock, shut off the truck, walk around to the office door, ring the buzzer. Normally, I don't think twice about any of that. But that night, when I cut the engine and the highway noise faded, I heard something I'm not used to on these runs. An engine, a low idle, somewhere out near the road. The drop-off lot sits a little off the highway behind a line of trees. You can't see the road from the loading bay, but you can hear it. The sound of that idling engine didn't fade. It stayed in one place, just humming. I stood there with the paperwork in my hand, listening. I don't know why I did it, but instead of going straight to the office door, I walked along the side of the building toward the tree line. There's a narrow strip of gravel that leads to a break in the trees where the lot connects to an access road. From there, you can see the highway. When I got close enough to look through the gap, I saw it. The SUV, parked on the opposite side of the road, just past the entrance, facing the direction I had come from. No hazards, no headlights. Just the faint glow of the dashboard and the red taillights. It was sitting there, like it was waiting for something, or someone. I froze for a second, watching. From that distance, I couldn't see the driver clearly, just a dark shape behind the wheel. They weren't moving, not smoking, not looking at a phone, not fiddling with anything, just sitting there. I backed away and went inside to finish the drop-off, trying not to let my face show how unnerved I was. The warehouse guy who signed my paperwork didn't seem to notice anything off. We exchanged the usual small talk. Loaded, signed, done. By the time I walked back out, the sound of the engine was gone. When I got back onto the highway, the shoulder where the SUV had been was empty. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about it. There was still the possibility that I was being dramatic. Late nights, caffeine, empty highways, all that. So before the next run, I decided to do something a little more deliberate. I was going to test it. On Wednesday, I told my supervisor I needed to run some errands after loading, and I delayed my departure by almost 3 hours. I didn't actually go anywhere. I sat in the truck, scrolling through my phone, watching the clock on the dash tick past midnight. I finally pulled out at 2:35 a.m. The city was even quieter than usual by then. Most of the lights in the office parks were off. Even the last few bars and 24-hour diners along the outskirts looked half dead. I took the same route, same exit, same ramp onto the state highway. For the first 20 minutes, there was nothing behind me. Then the road went dark. And not even 60 seconds after I passed the last gas station, a pair of headlights appeared in my mirror. Same distance, same steady pacing. I watched them for way too long enough that I caught my truck drifting slightly in the lane and had to refocus on the road. I tried something small at first. I dropped my speed from 72 to 60. The headlights shrank. I bumped it back up to 80. They grew again, keeping that same exact space between us. I merged into the left lane for no reason. 10 seconds later, they did the same. At one point, I flicked my blinker on like I was going to exit, then stayed in my lane. The SUV drifted right like it was preparing to follow, then slid back into the lane when I didn't actually take the ramp. Whoever was driving wasn't just behind me, they were paying attention. I felt the first real wave of fear hit me then. Not the horror movie kind, but that cold, practical kind where your brain starts listing off options. Keep driving. call someone, pull over, slow down, and force them to pass. I didn't like any of those choices. I ended up doing the easiest thing. I kept going. The SUV followed me all the way to the same turnoff. This time I didn't look through the trees. I didn't want to know where it parked. I made the drop, signed the papers, and got out of there as fast as I could. On the way back, I kept expecting to see the SUV in random places, sitting on the side of the road, hiding in some turnout, pulling out from behind a semi. I never did. The highway was empty. I tried telling myself, again, that I was lucky. Whoever it was had gotten bored and moved on. But deep down I knew that wasn't really what it felt like. It didn't feel like someone who got bored. It felt like someone who was practicing. The next night I made a decision that I knew was either going to calm me down or prove that I had a real problem. I wasn't going to just watch the SUV from a distance anymore. I was going to stop somewhere along the route, and I was going to see who was inside. There's a small rest area about halfway along that route. Calling it a rest area is generous. It's basically a wide patch of asphalt, 2 vending machines, a couple of picnic tables, and a bathroom building that looks like it was last cleaned in the early 2000s. I'd only stopped there once before, months earlier, when I was feeling sick. It was always empty when I passed it at night, just this dim yellow glow on the side of the road that I got used to ignoring. That night, I didn't ignore it. About an hour into the drive, the SUV was behind me again. At this point, that part isn't surprising anymore. Even seeing those headlights in my rear view barely shocked me. What bothered me now was how predictable it had become. No matter what time I left, how fast I drove, or what lane I used, the SUV always appeared after the last gas station, always at the same distance, always with the same slow, controlled adjustments. So when I saw the green rest area sign pop up on the side of the road, rest area 1 mile, I made up my mind. If this person was just some random driver who happened to be going my way, they'd keep going when I pulled off. If they followed me in, then I'd know for sure. I put my blinker on early just to see if the headlights reacted. They didn't. They stayed steady, sitting in that same exact spot in my mirror. The exit for the rest area came up quick. I turned onto the ramp, my heart pounding a little harder than it should have for such a simple move. As I curved down the ramp, I lost sight of the SUV in the mirror. The rest area was almost completely empty. One old pickup parked near the bathrooms with no one in sight. The overhanging lights gave everything that washed out yellow color that makes it hard to tell what time it is. I pulled into a spot facing the highway, leaving the truck running. For a second, it was quiet. Then maybe 5 seconds later, I saw headlights sweep across the trees at the ramp entrance. The SUV turned in. No hesitation, no signal. It just followed. It rolled slowly down the ramp and into the lot. And even from that distance, I could tell it was the same vehicle I'd been seeing for nights. Dark gray or black, mid-sized, tinted windows, no bumper stickers, no company logo. Nothing distinguishable. It didn't park next to me, which honestly might have been less creepy. Instead, it pulled into a space 2 rows away, facing my direction but a little offset. From where I was sitting, I could see its front end and part of the side. The engine stayed on. We sat there like that for a few seconds, both vehicles idling, nothing moving. I told myself I wasn't just going to sit and stare out my window like an idiot. If I was going to go through with this, I needed to commit. I shut off the engine, grabbed my wallet and my phone, and climbed out. The air was colder than I expected. It smelled like wet concrete and old oil. I forced myself not to look over at the SUV right away. Instead, I headed toward the vending machines near the bathroom building. acting like, oh, I was just stopping for a drink. My footsteps on the pavement sounded way louder than they should have. On the way, I let my eyes drift over casually. The SUV's windows were dark, but not so tinted that I couldn't see anything at all. There was definitely someone in the driver's seat. I caught the outline of a head and shoulders. They were sitting unnaturally straight, both hands high on the wheel, facing directly forward. They weren't on their phone. They weren't looking around. It almost looked like they were posing, like a mannequin in the driver's seat. I kept walking. When I reached the vending machines, I pretended to focus on the buttons, scrolling through the options I've already memorized 100 times. Chips, candy bars, sodas, water. I wasn't really paying attention to any of that. I was watching the SUV in the reflection of the vending machine glass. From that angle, I got a slightly better look. The driver was definitely watching me. They hadn't turned their head when I walked by, but now I could see their face angled just enough in my direction that I could feel their eyes on me. The weirdest part was how still they were. No shifting in the seat, no adjusting the mirrors, no changing their grip. They were just locked in. I fed a few crumpled bills into the machine, more for the sake of selling the act than because I wanted anything. The machine spat one back out like it always does when your hands are shaking a little. I glanced down to smooth it, then killed a couple more seconds, choosing a drink I didn't care about. I picked a bottle of water, grabbed it, and stood there for a second, like I was thinking about something. My heart was racing in a way that felt stupid for what I was actually doing. I wasn't in a horror movie. I was standing at a vending machine in a half-lit rest area parking lot with a stranger in an SUV. But every instinct I had was telling me that something was wrong. I made myself do one more thing. Instead of going straight back to my truck, I walked toward the bathroom building, which meant I had to pass closer to the SUV. As I got nearer, I could finally see the driver through the windshield. He looked ordinary. Mid-30s, maybe early 40s. Short hair, plain hoodie, clean shaven. Just a normal guy. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. Because normal people don't sit perfectly still in their car in the middle of the night, staring at strangers like that. His eyes didn't move. Not to my face, not to my hands, not to my truck. He stared just past me, almost like he was looking through me instead of at me. I felt this urge to say something, to nod, to wave, to act casual, anything to break the static feeling. But something about him told me not to. So I kept walking. I went into the bathroom and locked myself in a stall even though I didn't need to use it. I just needed a second to breathe and think without his eyes on me. The bathroom smelled like bleach and old pipes. I leaned my head against the cool metal of the stall door and tried to talk myself down. I went through the same arguments again. Maybe he's just tired. Maybe he's on his own delivery route. Maybe he's a cop or some kind of unmarked security. Maybe I'm making this worse than it is. I stayed in there for longer than I should have. 2, maybe 3 minutes. When I finally walked back out, I felt a little stupid about how nervous I'd been. That feeling lasted exactly 3 seconds. Because when I stepped back outside, the SUV was no longer parked where it had been. It was gone. I looked around the lot, thinking maybe it had moved to the far side or pulled up closer to the building. Nothing. The old pickup truck was still there, empty. The rest area was silent again. I walked faster back to my truck, suddenly very aware of all the dark patches beyond the reach of the parking lot lights. I got in, locked the doors, and started the engine. As soon as the headlights came on, I noticed something in the side mirror. A pair of headlights. Not from the lot, from the highway. The SUV was back on the road. It had never really left. It must have pulled out the moment I went into the bathroom, circled back up the ramp, and waited on the shoulder with its lights off until I came out. Now, as I pulled toward the exit, the SUV drifted forward slowly, matching my speed as we both merged back onto the highway. No attempt to pass, no attempt to fall behind. Just settling right back into that same steady distance. Like the rest stop was just a quick break in something that had already been decided. By the time I got back up to cruising speed, my hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly that they hurt. This wasn't curiosity anymore. It wasn't coincidence. Whoever was in that SUV had followed me off the highway, watched me walk around a rest area parking lot, then slipped back into position as soon as I got back on the road. I remember thinking something very clear and very simple. If I keep doing this route, something bad is going to happen. The only question was whether it was going to be that night or some other one. 2 days after the rest stop, I called my supervisor and told him I wanted to switch shifts for a while. I didn't give a real reason, just said I was trying to fix my sleep schedule. He didn't care as long as the runs got done. That night, I left at 7:45 p.m. It was the earliest I'd ever taken the route. Still dark, but not empty dark. There were a few other cars on the highway until I got past the outer towns, and honestly, the first hour felt normal. No headlights pacing me, no car that looked familiar, just a quiet long drive. I almost laughed at myself, like the past week had just been my brain looking for patterns where none existed, just paranoia. By the time I hit the middle stretch, the highway had finally cleared. I remember glancing in the mirror a few times, and each time all I saw was empty blacktop stretching behind me. It was the first peaceful drive I'd had in days. Then I passed a sign I'd never really noticed before. Next service is 38 miles. Nothing unusual about it, just a reminder that the next gas station was far away. But when I looked back at the road ahead, something caught my eye. Tail lights. About a quarter mile in front of me, a pair of red lights were glowing faintly in the dark, just far enough away that I hadn't seen them earlier. A car was ahead of me, moving slow, way below the speed limit. At first, I didn't think anything of it, until I realized the car wasn't slowing down. It was already slow, like it was waiting. I eased off the gas slightly, letting the distance close enough to make out the shape. It was an SUV, same size, same silhouette. I felt the bottom drop out of my stomach. The timing didn't make sense. I hadn't seen headlights appear behind me. I hadn't passed a turnaround point. The only way the SUV could be in front of me was if it had gotten onto the highway before me and waited, or if there were two of them. I don't know which idea scared me more. I stayed about 10 car lengths back. The SUV kept its speed at a steady 50 and a 65. I had two choices: pass them, stay behind. Passing meant pulling alongside. Passing meant giving whoever was inside a perfect look at me. Passing meant being next to their window on a road with no one else around. So I stayed behind for maybe a minute. Then I caught something in the mirror. Headlights. Far back, but closing fast. No hesitation, no gradual approach. They were coming in steady, like someone holding the gas right at the point where it wouldn't fishtail. Within seconds, the headlights were close enough that I could make out the wide stance of an SUV. I did the math in my head and realized that the impossible. There was one in front of me, and now one behind me. My pulse started hammering in my chest. I didn't want to believe what I was seeing, but there was no other explanation. I was being boxed in, front car drifting slow, rear car closing the gap. And there I was, right between them, on a stretch of highway with no lights, no exits, no cameras, and no other cars. I gripped the wheel tighter, trying to think through the options. Accelerate and ram the front SUV, slam brakes and risk the rear one hitting me, pull onto the shoulder and hope they kept going. All of them were stupid. All of them were dangerous. The road curved slightly. For a moment, I lost sight of the front SUV's shape, just the tail lights glowing red. Then they got brighter. The front SUV was braking. Not all at once, not in a panic stop, just easing down, slowing the gap between us inch by inch. Behind me, the headlights surged forward and then steadied at a distance that felt intentional. They weren't trying to crash into me, they were trying to force me to stop. My brain went into tunnel vision. Everything outside the windshield felt like it faded into a blur. No road noise, no engine hum, just my heartbeat. I thought about the rest area, about the driver sitting perfectly still, about the way he stared past me like he wasn't really looking at me, like he was waiting. If I stopped here between them, nobody would ever know what happened to me. No cameras, no footprints, just an empty highway and a missing delivery guy. I don't know what exactly snapped in me, but suddenly, fear turned into something else, something sharp and focused. At the next small bend, I floored it. My engine roared, and my truck shot forward. For a second, the gap between me and the front SUV closed faster than I expected. It's like they hadn't anticipated I'd go for it so aggressively. The tail lights flared as the front driver hit their brakes harder. I didn't lift, not even a little. At the very last moment, they jerked into the opposing lane. I flew past them in a blur of dark metal and red glow. Behind me, I heard my own tires screech faintly from how hard I was gripping the wheel, knuckles white, breath caught in my throat. The rear SUV reacted a second too late. By the time they tried to follow, I was already pulling away. The speedometer climbed, 70, 75, 80, 85. I kept my eyes on the road ahead, refusing to look back, terrified that if I did, I'd see them right behind me, inches from my bumper. Finally, when the road straightened out, I risked a glance. Both SUVs were still there, both of them. But now they were far behind, just two sets of angry headlights shrinking in the darkness. I didn't slow down once, not for an exit, not for a curve, not for anything. I drove all the way into Wichita in one long stretch of panic and adrenaline. When I finally pulled into the drop-off lot, my hands were shaking so badly that I dropped the paperwork. The warehouse guy asked if I was okay. I told him I was just tired, which was the biggest lie I've ever said out loud. I made the drop in record time and got back on the highway, but not the same highway. I took a different route home, longer, more cars, actual lights, gas stations, people. I didn't care if it took an extra hour. I just needed to feel like I existed in the same world as everyone else again. During that entire drive, I kept checking the mirrors. Not once did I see the SUVs, not a single time. But even when the road was busy, surrounded by other drivers, a thought kept repeating in my head like a stuck radio transmission. They didn't want to chase me, they wanted me to stop. And once that thought settled in, something even worse followed it. The question that had no sane answer. Why me? I didn't know it then, but the answer wasn't going to come from the highway. It was going to come from where the route ended. And I wasn't ready for that. I didn't quit the job that night. I thought about it. I even drafted a resignation text in my head on the way back. But when I finally got home, I was so drained, I just crashed on the couch and told myself I'd see how I felt tomorrow. Tomorrow came, and life went on. That's the messed up thing about this kind of stuff. You can almost die on a highway in the middle of nowhere on a Tuesday night and still be back at work Thursday morning like nothing happened. The next day, I refused the route. I told my supervisor I wasn't taking the Wichita run anymore. I didn't give him the real reason. I just said the drive was messing with my back and I'd rather handle shorter, local deliveries. He pushed back a little, but not much. We had other drivers. To him, it was just another route. I wish the story ended there. A week went by. I stuck to local runs, industrial parks, suburbs, occasional airport pickup, all in populated areas, all with street lights, cameras, and people. I slept a little better. I still thought about the SUVs, though. About the box-in, about the rest area. Every time I drove at night, even just across town, I found myself checking the mirrors more than I used to. Nothing weird happened. Then, about 10 days after that last highway run, my supervisor called me into the office at the end of my shift. He wasn't alone. There was another guy in there I'd never seen before. Mid-40s, plain clothes, short hair. He had that posture you can spot a mile away. It's cop, or close enough. He introduced himself as a detective with the state police. The first thing he did was ask me to confirm my full name, my route, and what nights I'd been on the road in the past month. My stomach dropped before he even explained why he was there. He didn't dance around it. "We've had multiple reports," he said, "about a pair of SUVs attempting to force vehicles to stop on Highway 41 between here and Wichita. Your truck was one of them." He said it like it was a statement, not a question. I just nodded. He asked me to describe what happened. From the first time I saw the SUV behind me, to the rest stop, to the box-in, I told him everything. I left out the part where I sat in a bathroom stall, trying not to have a panic attack. But other than that, I didn't sugarcoat anything. He didn't look surprised at any of it. If anything, he looked like he was checking boxes in his head that he already expected to be checked. When I finished, he asked me one question that stuck with me. Did they ever use their horn, flash a badge, or turn on any kind of lights? Anything that would make you think they were law enforcement? "No," I said, "never." He nodded slowly, like that confirmed something. Then he told me why they were there. About 3 weeks before my first weird night on the route, there had been another driver on the same stretch of highway. Not from our company, but same general job, parts delivery between cities. He'd reported something similar, a vehicle pacing him, then 2 vehicles, one in front, one behind, trying to slow him down. The difference was that driver had actually pulled over, thinking it was some kind of unmarked law enforcement stop. It wasn't. According to the report, the 2 men who approached his truck tried to pull him out of the driver's seat. He managed to hit the gas and tear away, with the door half open. They didn't catch him, but they tried. The detective didn't give me all the details, but he gave me enough. It wasn't random. They weren't just screwing with people for fun. They were targeting certain vehicles, box trucks, flatbeds, anything that looked like it might be hauling valuable cargo. They were treating it like a rolling robbery. "We think they mistook you for someone else the first couple of nights," he said. "Or they were testing you, learning your routine." The words hit harder than I expected. Testing me. Like I was part of some drill I didn't sign up for. I asked him why they hadn't just hit me on the first night, or the second, or at the rest area. He shrugged. "People like that don't always rush it. They like control. They like knowing they can do it whenever they want." For some reason, that made me feel worse than anything else. Because that meant all those weird nights, the pacing, the watching, the rest stop, weren't sloppy. They were intentional. I asked if they had plates or any kind of ID on the SUVs. He said the footage they had from other cases was low quality, no clear plates, no faces you could use in a lineup. In our company, we didn't have dash cams installed. I was on my own out there. The detective gave me his card and told me if I remembered anything, even something small, I should call him. Right before he left, he said something else. "You did the right thing not stopping. Whatever you do, if you're alone and something doesn't feel right, don't pull over on that highway for anyone. unless you see marked lights and a uniform. And even then, if you can, go to a populated exit first. I nodded. It all sounded like common sense in that office. Under fluorescent lights, with other people around. It doesn't feel like common sense when you're alone on a 2-lane highway at 1 a.m. After he left, my supervisor offered me a different route permanently. I took it. I haven't been back on that stretch of highway since. That should have been the end of it. But a few days after that meeting, something happened that still messes with my head. I was driving home from a friend's place around 10 p.m. Residential streets, street lights, cars parked along both sides, normal neighborhood stuff. I turned onto the road that leads to my apartment complex and saw a vehicle parked at the far end of the block, engine running. At first, I didn't pay much attention to it. Then my headlights swept across it as I got closer. Dark mid-sized SUV, tinted windows, plain front grille. It could have been any SUV, I know that. There are thousands of them. But as I passed it, I felt that same cold, crawling sensation in my chest that I had on the highway. I glanced over. The driver's face was hard to make out in the low light, just a pale shape behind the glass. He wasn't on his phone. He wasn't adjusting the radio. He was staring straight ahead, hands high on the wheel, sitting too straight, exactly like before. I turned into my complex and pulled into a space that wasn't my usual one, just out of habit. I watched the entrance through my rear view mirror for a solid minute. The SUV never pulled in. Eventually, it rolled slowly past the opening of the complex and kept going down the street. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was a neighbor. Maybe it was someone waiting for their GPS to load. Maybe I was so messed up from the previous weeks that I was seeing patterns where none existed. But here's the thing that stuck with me. I'd never noticed that SUV in my neighborhood before, and I haven't seen it since. I still drive at night, but I plan everything differently now. I fill up before it gets dark. I avoid long, empty stretches when I can. I pay attention to who's behind me for more than a mile. I don't stop at rest areas unless there are other people around. And if I see the same headlights in my mirror for too long, I don't ignore it anymore. I don't know who those guys were, or how many routes they've tried this on, or if they ever got caught. All I know is that for a couple of weeks, I wasn't just some random driver on a lonely highway. I was on someone else's route. And the only reason I'm able to tell the story now is because, for once in my life, I didn't do the reasonable thing. I didn't pull over. I kept driving.